Only what you could carry. That meant my young brother could carry maybe those little grips with his toys. I could carry only a suitcase, a large suitcase, and my mother and my father too could carry only what they could carry. But we followed the rules like good citizens. We said there's no point in being antagonistic. Some people disobeyed and were cautioned, and some were sent to distant places. We are not sure why these people, their family members, and to this day we don't know why things happened the way it did, but things happened quickly. There was no time to gooza. You followed the orders, got yourself prepared, and then the armed soldiers came and directed us to the Pacific Railroad station.
I remember riding in the back of the Army truck, like you see in different movies and stories, and then I know that I had just finished making a wool two-piece suit in home ec, and I got an A on it, and I was so proud of myself. It was kind of a slight beige with a little bit of gray in there, and made it 100% wool. And how my mother was able, or my dad was able to get enough money to buy me the material, I don't know, but anyway, I did, and had two pleats in the front, two pleats in the back. And then I made red with white polka dots on, small polka dots, a blouse to go with it. I was so happy with it, and so my mom says, okay, we all have to look good when we get on the train, on the truck and go on the train, so you gotta wear your good clothes. So we all wore good clothes. They didn't tell us where we were going. The train was dirty, dark, and then of course they all made us put the shades down so no one would see from the outside in, as if they could, and then we couldn't even tell where we were. So only thing was, we recall, at least I did, you know, as the train crosses and the railroad arm comes down and goes ting, 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 yeah, then you know that you're in a city somewhere. So we heard that, so we knew that we were in a city, some city, and then every so often we would hear that. And then as we got to California, I kind of peeked, you know, and I said, hey, you guys, there's palm trees here. And then next time, same thing when the arm came up, there's more palm trees. I said, could we be in California? And I said, oh, can't be. But we've been on the train for such a long time, it had to be somewhere. Sure enough, we were in California, so all the way from Washington, the Army sent that, all that expensive money they spent.
Now they were taken to racetracks and fairgrounds where the Army almost overnight had built assembly centers. They lived here until new pioneer communities could be completed on federally owned lands in the interior. Santa Anita Racetrack, for example, suddenly became a community of about 17,000 persons. The Army provided housing and plenty of healthful, nourishing food for all. The residents of the new community set about developing a way of life as nearly normal as possible. They held church services, Protestant, Catholic, and Buddhist. They issued their own newspaper, organized nursery schools, and some made camouflage nets for the United States Army.
There was a barracks, had about A, B, C, D. Some of them had E, you know, so they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And A would be about this big for the whole family. Either you had 2 or 3 or 4 or even 5, you know. Everybody lived in this one size. And then, let's see, that lasted for about 3 months until they got a permanent place, you know. Even the permanent place was small.
Tanforan was a mess. It was dirty, smelly, And I just couldn't get used to the latrine factory they had. Right outside of our stable was this puddle of water that smelled like urine, and you could hear everything that went on because the walls didn't go all the way up to the ceiling. It was terrible. Anyway.
I worked as a timekeeper. I went around and made sure that the evacuees we had a internal police department, and made sure that they signed on my sheet. To come and then report in type of thing, you know, and took it back to the main office. That was my job.
While in Arizona, Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, and elsewhere, quarters were being built where they would have an opportunity to work and more space in which to live. When word came that these new homes were ready, the final movement began.
I was one of the first contingents to go to Heart Mountain, and I remember getting off the train, and we had to go up to the camp area, and it was just a plateau with buildings, nothing else, you know. And there was Heart Mountain in the background, of course. When I first got there, there were just 9 guard towers around the perimeter. It turned out the camp will be around a mile square. And as one of my jobs, we put stakes around the camp, so that the other evacuees could come and put in posts and string barbed wire. Helped to intern myself. I protested to the director about this, you know, but I never got an answer.
Their evacuation did not imply individual disloyalty, but was ordered to reduce a military hazard at a time when danger of invasion was great. 2/3 of the evacuees are American citizens by right of birth. The rest are their Japanese-born parents and grandparents. The people are not under suspicion. They are not prisoners. They are not internees. They are merely dislocated people, the unwounded casualties of war. The time, spring and summer of 1942.
We were put on trains, and I had never been on a train before in my life, and never been out of the state of Washington. And for us 15-year-old kids, it's sort of like vacation and adventure. So right away, we began to, associate with our peers rather than our family. And I remember going on the train with my cousin who grew up on the next farm, and fooling around, and when he was sleeping we painted a mustache on his face and did things like that.
When we got orders to get on the train to go to Topaz. We didn't know what Topaz was, but it was a uncomfortable ordeal of old dilapidated trains and gaslit. Well, it was tantamount to being gaslit, and we had to keep our shades drawn. It wasn't air conditioning at that time, obviously. After 2 nights, 3 days, when we got to Delta, Utah, Charles Ernest's wife, Ernest, he was of German descent, and his wife were waiting for us on the train tracks and welcomed us to Topaz Topaz was some 10, 15 miles west of, in the desert, in the Soviet desert, which was all at one time like part of Salt Lake, Lake Bonneville, which was all underwater, alkaline dust. Nothing grew there other than sage. Nothing grew there other than sage. I say that over and over again. And they were still building, and we went into a half-finished structure. We had 2 rooms because we have 5 kids in our family.